Well, hello everybody. Thank you for coming today. To quickly introduce a couple of people on our panel. Myself, my name is Brian Marchand. I'm a practice director with Fujitsu Americas. Introduce Charlotte Liu. She's the product manager at Moody's Analytics. And the demo and the order management in the cloud we're going to show you today is based off the Moody's Analytics implementation we did. I have Ed Hoffman from FPX. So a little bit we'll talk about today is how FPX integrated with Salesforce to handle their quotes and their proposal management. So you'll see a little bit of that today as well. So we have Ed here for questions. And finally, we have Ming Kang. He was our technical architect on our implementation that we're going to talk a lot about with you today. So what is today all about? We see today's forecast, enterprise order management in the cloud. So what are you actually going to see out of today's session? Well, first we're going to talk about a little who we are, so you know the three companies that are up here, right? So we have Moody's Analytics, Fujitsu America, and FPX, all the people on your panel. We're going to talk about what their existing lead quote process was and why they were going about doing this implementation. What were the issues they were having, right? And what those project success factors were going to be. How we actually did this project, what we did to set it up, what our high-level architecture and design was for any of our more technical folks out there. What our phase one scope and what we thought the achievements would be. And then I'm going to give you a demonstration of what it was, because if some of you are having a problem with how you handle your order management or your quotes, you can see the results of what this implementation were. I'm not going to go into crazy amount of details, but you can get a good look of what this implementation looked like. And then finally, we'll talk about what some of the future plans are and what are the lessons we learned and how you can position yourself for that kind of success. Okay? As far as questions, we're going to have time at the end, but I'm fairly open to making this a fairly open session. So if you do have a question, be loud, let us know, and we'll try to answer it best we can. If it's specific to an implementation you're trying to do, I'll also remain after so you guys can ask some questions. All right? So with no further ado, let's get started. So who is Fujitsu and what is our SaaS practice? So we'll go very quickly through about the companies. Obviously, Fujitsu, the larger organization, a lot of people have heard of. But our particular SaaS practice, we've been around since October 2003. We were a company called O'Carry. We were acquired by Fujitsu 2.5 years ago, and actually announced that here at Dreamforce. We are the largest. We've actually implemented the largest number of seats of all Salesforce.com implementation partners globally. Okay? And we're focused on your SFA engagements, your customer service engagements, but really the integration points, right? And that's a lot what you're going to see today. How do you integrate with order management? How do you integrate with your quotation systems? Things along those lines. Okay? Let me get this. So a little bit more about the practice. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but what we're capable of doing is not only doing your actual integration, your implementation, helping you determine what the best product mix are. So we're going to show you a particular product mix today where we used FPX, Informatica, but helping you come up with what's best for your organization, right? And then actually, we also go to the level where you can actually manage your applications for you. Okay? Again, quick marketing slide. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want to get to the actual implementation we're talking about. This is a list of some of the clients we've actually worked with. A lot in financial institutions work with manufacturing, retail. I'm going to introduce Charlotte Liu. She's going to talk a little bit about Moody's, and then we'll follow up with FPX as well.
Okay. Just to give everyone, hello? Can you hear me? Just to give everyone a little bit of background of who we are as Moody's Analytics. Moody's as a corporation, we're a leader in servicing the financial services industries. We're made up of two main organizations. One is MIS, or Moody's Investor Service, which is our ratings agency, and Moody's Analytics, which works very closely with the ratings agency, but we provide research and tools specifically around the financial services industry, around research, software, and we also provide services around training and consulting, specifically in areas of credit, economics, and credit risk management.
And we're going to introduce Ed Hoffman. He'll tell everybody a little bit about Firepod and FPX.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Again, my name is Ed Hoffman. I'm with FPX, our Solutions and Delivery Group. So we were working with Charlotte and Brian and their teams doing that. FPX is the leading provider in SaaS CPQ, configure price quote applications. So we're a true SaaS application, multi-tenant on-demand application. We have over 20 years experience doing configuration pricing and quoting. So our team is very experienced, has lots of time doing this. And then our flagship system, just with the industry knowledge we have doing CPQ, our flagship on-demand application was developed here from the ground up, again, to be a true multi-tenant on-demand application. With this, we've helped thousands of customers throughout the world solve their problems. With it, we have a product data manager to manage the data, the configuration data that we're going to talk about here later. Just getting in that, a very powerful tool to handle that. And with that then, too, we have a new offering, the CPaaS, Configuring Pricing as a Service, that will leverage that information. So when you create that and use it in our on-demand app, it also now is available if you want to develop a Force.com application or your own e-commerce application to take advantage of our knowledge and our configuration engine. I'm not going to go a whole lot into this, but again, the marketing slide similar to Brian's. A number of our customers, like I said, we've helped solve problems throughout the world, doing multi-currencies, multi-languages, solving complex pricing issues, getting accurate quotes, helping solve problems where quotations, configurations weren't accurate, and like I said, just helping a number of customers deliver accurate and complete quotes.
So I'm going to kind of set the stage here, give a little bit of background of kind of where we sat at Moody's Analytics about a year and a half ago before we went into the implementation. We, like a lot of other organizations who acquired companies, we sat kind of in a stage where we had to merge a lot of business functions because of our multiple acquisitions over the various years. And we had to integrate and consolidate a lot of our business processes. So as part of that environment, we ended up taking a look at our current state. And what we noticed that Moody's Analytics was faced with over 20-plus business systems, and that led to obviously a lot of different types of challenges for us as an organization. We had a lot of duplication of functionality, a lot of customer data was all over the place. We had different data models across our legacy business organizations. We truly lacked sales automation tools. A lot of the legacy applications had their pluses and minuses, but we really lacked true Salesforce automation across all our legacy organizations, as well as marketing tools and kind of around the service area, as well as intelligent call routing. So really, we were looking, I guess, at Moody's Analytics as we needed to enhance our sales and service capabilities and really rationalize our order management and billing environments so that we could be in a better state than we were about a year and a half ago. So what were the objectives that we were really looking at with our current environment? I mean, obviously, we're looking at a technology roadmap to consolidate a lot of these duplicate systems. We were rationalizing our technology environment as part of this project, so we went through a tool selection, and obviously we outlined the roadmap of initiatives that we really wanted to deliver to the organization. So some of the key goals for embarking on this project was, one, we wanted a 360-degree view of our client. I know a lot of organizations strive for this. I mean, it was very difficult in our current environment with all the data all over the place and the 20-plus various systems. We lacked a centralized product catalog across the organization. Some had a standard list pricing. Other organizations didn't have a list price. It was all over the place in various Excel spreadsheets. And just in general, some of our legacy CRM applications just really lacked, I guess, user experience, and we really wanted to increase adoption across the organization so that we could be on a single tool set that we can all share across the organization. So one of the additional requirements that we had as part of this project was, it was going to be a phased approach, so we needed to integrate with a lot of our legacy order processing and fulfillment and back office systems, and really create a platform that delivers ongoing improvements across the sales organization and just really drive better analytics so that our managers and executives could really see what was going on with the business and make appropriate business decisions.
All right, so from a project perspective, right, you just saw all the different issues we had to face. So we had to put some success factors together, how we're going to do this, right? Moody's had all these different systems. We knew we wanted to get the full forecast, what this is all about here, give the tools to the salespeople, then also the tools to the sales associates to actually enter their orders and actually get that provision. When you have all those different order management systems downstream, how do we give them one place to do all of this, right? Yes, long term we may want to have all that provisioning happening in Salesforce as well, but we also want to, at this point, phase one, keep things tight, right? Give them one place to do all of this. We can use integration to get it all provisioned, things along those lines. So from management and resources perspective, what we need, like all projects you've all probably been part of, you need executive sponsorship. Without executive sponsorship, you're not going to get the salespeople using it properly. You're not going to get the sales associates in there entering their orders correctly along those lines. Flexibility of the project team and defined roles and responsibilities. So we needed to make sure that we had different members. Obviously, you had different members all up here on the panel. We had different members of the project team as well, making sure all those teams could work together well. Business and owning and having responsibility for the application. This wasn't strictly an IT project. For the IT world, we had to make sure the business was part of owning this, coming up with those requirements, right? Being part of all of that from the very beginning. And one thing you'll hear me say, if you want a successful, everybody says user adoption, user adoption. User adoption doesn't start from the day you put out your application. It starts from the day you start your project, right? So having that business involvement from day one is the most important thing, and we made sure that that was happening. And then the ability to adapt to those minor changes and requirements and priorities. Again, all of you have been part of an implementation before. It's not the old days where you write a document, you sign off, you deliver it. Things are going to change. So if you involve that business early, right, you're going to get those minor changes, and you're going to be able to go towards it. So I really like that. Spirit of the law, not letter of the law. This is the spirit of what we're asking for. We know that could change in a week, a day, an hour, right? Project communication, expectation management, number one here. No surprises from anybody. We had made sure we had our steering committee. We are always communicating to the business. This is what we're releasing, right? And if it changed, you didn't find out about it a month later. You found about it that day, right, through that communication channel. So we made sure we knew all of this was going to be necessary. Remember 20 systems? Well, that means you have 20 people more than 20 different groups that care about what's going on. We need to make sure we communicate all of this constantly, right? So again, constant team members via phone calls. We made that a rule. If you have a problem, I don't want to see it in an email. You want to see it in an email, and I want you to follow it up with a phone call. Because we see it on these types of implementations, right? Email, and then, why didn't I get that done? Well, I didn't get that done because he hasn't responded yet. Did you call him? Right? So these are things we made sure we were doing in this large scale of a project in this tight timeline, right? The advisory team meeting, weekly, every week, right? And then obviously we had our status meetings, right? And then our project planning is the iterative approach, what I've been talking about, constantly building this, showing it to our users, and coming back. And our prioritization, and then the balance of documentation and execution, right? What I was saying earlier, where you don't write a document, sign off, and go, just like most of you probably have done Salesforce implementations, a lot of prototyping. Okay. So a little project overview, what this all was. We're going to go live with 480 users, obviously different profiles, capabilities of what they're capable of doing. Outlook Office integration. Open visibility model we decided on pretty early. So when I say open, does that mean everything's open? Yes, everything you can see, the basic information for everything. You may not be able to create orders and things along those lines, but that's profile settings, right? We had to go through a platform and tool selection with Moody's, right? So best of breed selection process, obviously, and the final decision was to go with Salesforce.com, obviously. FPX for the quote. Adobe Flex is up there because we use that for some of the customization you're going to see today. Because while a lot of people like to stay out of the box, some of Moody's requirements were definitely going to require customization. I'm going to show you that in the demo today. And then finally, to do that integration, to do the talking between all these systems, it was chosen to use Informatica. You should work with a lot of Informatica on demand. Moody's actually uses Power Center, so a little bit larger, the implementation. Okay? So what were the phase one requirements? I'm going to show you all this. What do we have to try to accomplish, right? Obviously, your typical account and contact management, right? consolidation of multiple source systems. So again, a lot of acquisitions, so they had a lot of different places where you can get those accounts and contacts. So yes, with their duplication efforts, all of that you'd expect. But we were bringing accounts and contacts from multiple different source systems. Biggest part of accounts, I'm not going to really show you this in the demo, was their address management. Built a lot of customization around making sure you have zip code lookups, that people were putting in the correct addresses. Won't show that in the demo, but I will point it out here. And then managing departments. So I know a lot of you may have worked with departments in some of your organizations. Well, some people actually create a department as an account, right? We actually use subs objects, so you can actually look at an account, and then you have finance, marketing. They're not individual accounts, right? We set them up a little bit differently. Activity management, typical, right? I don't think that needs much explanation in the room. So we're all Salesforce users. We know what that is. Pipeline management and forecasting. Little bit different here. It sounds very generic. With Moody's, it's actually probably the more difficult things we had to set up, where we had to go a little bit out of the box. Very renewal-based business, but they also have a large portion of their business where they sell to multiple locations, and they need to manage that. So it's not simply I'm selling product A to New York and this is my rep, right? How they're actually set up is I could be selling product A to Fujitsu, we'll use as my example, right? But Fujitsu in New York, Fujitsu in London, Fujitsu everywhere else, and a rep is assigned to each of those. So to do your forecasting and your quotas, it's a little bit more difficult. It's not simply an opportunity owner, right? Because it all gets split depending on where you are. And I'll show that in the demo how we actually had to set that up. Yeah. And we also don't want to make it 500 clicks to set it up or create 50 opportunities either, right? Pricing, and that's where we'll show the fire upon piece. Contract and order management. I don't have many sub-bullets here, but I'll show you that all in the demo, how we do that, how we actually create an order, pass it through to their end systems, and actually handle that. And then the snazziest piece, I think, sales targets and quotas. We're going to show you how we actually set that up. We're not using out-of-the-box customizable forecasting. Very specific requirements with Moody's. We had to create a customizable way so their reps can actually see, are they hitting their quota? How are they mapping to their quotas? Okay. So I'm going to pass over to Ming Kang really quick. So anybody's technical in the room, we're going to go through a little bit what the high-level architecture was.
Hey guys, this is Min. Yeah, generally, I'm not going to bore you with the really gritty details. I just want to give you a couple sort of takeaways. Obviously, you could see the high-level architectural diagram above. The general takeaway here is that, on the right-hand side and the bottom, you have the various order systems. You have Salesforce on the left. And really what we want to, the main takeaway is that when we first went to Moody's, they kept on saying these two businesses, these order management systems are two completely separate things. And the more we looked at it, even though from the business user's point of view, on the technical side, it actually was very close. And it was just a matter of different features that certain types of orders supported. So that was the important thing, a single schema for current quote and order systems. And we really want the canonical data model for the systems across business lines and systems. That unified model also allows for easier integrations of new business lines in the future. A really good example is that after we went live, a business unit that Moody's had acquired last year, I believe, they want to bring them onto the Salesforce implementation. And it really vetted out our original design, which is, can we bring these guys on quickly? So we're in the process of doing it now, but everything points to they could pretty much use the current system, just enable certain features and functions and say, okay, it's rules-based. Allow named users, don't allow named users. Allow certain features. And we could just turn that off without having to affect the actual data model, which for the business folks may not be a big thing. It's more of just a cost savings thing, but in terms of maintenance and time to deliver these new teams onto the platform, it's a lot quicker. And in general, we just want to reduce the point-to-point integrations. Having obviously, this is a classic, nothing too groundbreaking, but sort of the hub in the middle just makes it a lot easier, so you don't have to have, other order systems talking to each other. Tight integration with Salesforce.com. So basically, from the user's point of view, regardless of what the system's actually filling the orders, or regardless of where we're sending it down, it should look the same to them. So it's unified. We get statuses back and forth. So that to the user, it looks, it's really transparent to them. And the improvement there is that, once we could start decommissioning these order management systems and do it entirely in Salesforce, then it'll be, it'll be transparent to them. Anything that they want to change on the order will be done right there, and it will be no different than they've been doing up until now. Just want to talk a little bit about the custom code and interface. Brian's actually going to show some of this. Generally, I mean, we went in and we wanted to really sort of promote the out-of-the-box functionality. We got into a lot of situations where a client might say, we want to click one button, we want everything to happen, and it may not be the right thing for them. Moody's did sort of have the vision to let us, sort of make some design decisions. So in general, we did want to promote out-of-the-box functionality, but then just enhance with custom code, a lot of wizards. So we're never stuck into, oh, you can't use out-of-the-box functionality or you can't use a certain feature. So you'll see a lot of that. There's a variety of things we did for the sales target page. It's a combination of Visualforce and Ajax. There's a ton of data there, so it's not the snappiest page, but behind the scenes, getting to that that summary page is pretty invaluable. And then some of the other pages, one of the pages, the view allocation, where it's massive data entry, we use Flex. We use it on a very limited basis, just because the maintenance is a little different than what you might get on the native application. But we thought the amount of data entry really warranted a different user interface. And again, so that was just speaking to the right tool for the right job. Okay, so just, again, more details. Technologies used, we used Apex, obviously Visualforce. This is probably the most customized application I've been a part of in terms of implementation. It could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, depending on your vantage point. Most of the complex validations were handled through Apex and triggers. Again, just reiterating that wizards don't block the out-of-the-box functionality, but accelerate entry and user acceptance. We did use Ajax in some cases where we did have certain data sources that we didn't want to obviously block each other and pull it in and sort of collate at the same time, and the timing around that. And again, Adobe Flex in very limited capacity. In terms of data integration, we use Informatica Power Center. Moody's was, they were a big informatics shop to begin with, so it was a good fit. Informatica is a key partner for Fujitsu. There's about 30 entity-level mappings. Again, direct integrations to order fulfillment systems. And, what you get with Informatica, fault tolerant and high availability, something that they didn't have in the past. There wasn't this, I've processed my orders, it's 8 hours later, where is this order? It's back-end stuff, it's technology stuff, but it really does drive user adoption. And so, hand it back to Brian.
Get back to that. All right, so now we're actually going to get to the demo. So I'm going to bring us through in this demo a little bit about the opportunity management piece, show you a little bit into FPX, the quoting and calculators. Not going to go crazy on any of this. Again, be careful of the calculators too as well, because we don't want to show sensitive data for Moody's. And then I'm going to go through a sales order, how we create it, and talk about a little of the validations that are built into this through code. And then finally, we'll end with what we call our sales target page. Now, you know how Salesforce gives you that safe harbor agreement? I'm not going to do that. Give you my CYA agreement. We're in a test environment. We're in a test environment where active testing is actually going on. So, if anything does go wrong, bear with me. But we are actually, as Vin was telling you, we were doing that release for the next group. They're going live shortly. So we actually have testers in there testing with changes. So, but we did not want to do our demo in our production environment. So, actually already logged in, as you can see, Sandbox QA. I'm not going to focus on accounts, so I'm just going to go into an account we actually created for this and just call it demo account for now. And I'll show you a little bit about it. One thing you're going to notice that I'm a New Yorker by some of the contact names that I actually used for here. But we have Derek Jeter and Mark Texera. And so what I'm going to actually do is let's go through the creation of a salesperson now creating an opportunity. At the beginning, you're like, oh, this is standard Salesforce. Bear with me. Once we get through FirePond and I show you the forecasting pieces, you'll see a little bit more of that customization that we had to do. So just like any other implementation, the user's going to go in and hit new opportunity. They do have to make a choice if it's new or renewal. Actually, that doesn't actually happen for the users. I take that back. We actually default renewal in there if it is for them. They have a lot of renewal-based business, so their renewals are actually pre-created for them on a yearly basis. So they're already in the system. But let's create this opportunity. So we'll just say it's our Dreamforce opportunity. I do know about contact roles along those lines, but we're not using that as significantly here. We do ask for a primary contact on the opportunity, reasons around orders and things along those lines for future. So let's actually be quick about this, and I know Derek Jeter's in there, so I don't actually have to put there. We actually can select the sales associate as well when we talk to about FireUpon later. We have that in there for approval reasons for FireUpon. Let's just choose a particular stage. We'll say we're in pricing discussions. Put a first appointment date. We won't do it too crazy on this. I don't think I'm going to quite close this deal today. We'll put it a month out. And then we'll put a contract start and end date in. I do have a regular mouse here. Nice. Okay. Okay. So like I said, nothing too customized yet, right, everybody? Just a regular opportunity. All right. So I hit save. Okay. Now the next step is actually, let's say we're at the point where we actually want to quote this out, right? Customer wants some pricing. We said we're in pricing directions. This is where we have our quote section. Okay? And I'm going to actually hit Get Quote. Now, while this looks like Salesforce.com, any of you that have worked with any of the pricing engines out there, this actually is now passed this over to FPX. Okay? And the user can now actually go in there and build their quote. So I'm actually going to do that with us today. And I'm not going to choose anything too advanced here. But I'm going to hit New and do our quote. And say Dreamforce quote. And we want to actually add products to our quotes right now. Okay. Now, Moody's has some pretty advanced different types of calculators. Charlotte, how many were there? 256 different calculators or something?
64 calculators and a couple thousand products.
A couple of thousand products, 64 calculators. So, again, eventually we probably move away from the franchise, but right now, since they have all these different groups, we let them select what types of products am I particularly trying to quote right now. And I chose Vermont, and that's the new group we're actually bringing on. And again, this is a very basic calculator. This is the one calculator where it doesn't do automatic pricing right now. We let them actually just enter it straight. Again, for security reasons, I don't want to go through those individual calculators for their pricing. So I'm just going to put very simple $5, right? Not a very big opportunity here. And I'm telling you, Vermont CAD is probably not $5, right, Charlotte? And hit Add Quote. Okay. So, you know what? I actually made a mistake. I want to go back in now, and I should have probably added 2 products so you guys could see that. So, bear with me. Again, testing environment, so if we have a little timing issue, I don't know with the internet connection. All right. So I have my thing here. I said I was going to add 2 products. I won't. I'll keep one since we've already done that to save some time here. Let's hit back to opportunity. Oh, did I add to opportunity? Yep. So why is it not here yet? Well, I forgot to export. So let's go back. So the rep now can add this to the opportunity. Now, why don't we add it automatically? Well, we don't have to necessarily add an opportunity. As a rep, I may want to do multiple types of quotes, multiple configurations. It's not the one I really want to forecast yet, right? I could have added multiple there. I didn't for this particular demo's cases. But when they're ready to say, this is what I'm actually forecasting, that's when they hit that Add to Opportunity button, and that'll push that over to Salesforce.com. The typical question we get next is, well, what if once I push it, I want to change it? Well, of course you can, right? You can go back in and change it, export it again, and we'll make the appropriate adjustments to that actual opportunity. But if you see now, I actually have, oh, what happened there, Charlotte? Sorry, guys. Like I said, testing environment, we're in testing, so bear with me. And if this doesn't work, I set up one already for us. So. No, apologize, guys. So let's go back to. So there we go. So I have my quote line here, right? Vermont CAD. So what we said earlier, this is still not that different, right? But we do our integrating, right? But what is different? Remember I told you earlier about multiple locations? Well, we have an opportunity owner here, right? And it's Brian Marchand, right? But maybe I'm selling Vermont CAD across multiple areas. Maybe it's across London and the United States, right? And I'm the rep for the United States, but Charlotte's the rep for London. Well, how would we break this up for quotas, for forecasting, right? It's a little difficult because you can only have the one opportunity owner, right? But you have product owners, yes, but they actually have specialists and multiple people that needs to fall into that forecast. So what we had to do is actually set up a way where they could add multiple locations to this opportunity. And what you're going to see now, I believe this is Visualforce still, right? Yep. So this is Visualforce. And all this does is it aggregates all the locations of all the contacts and all the accounts, the account address and all the contact addresses associated to this particular account. So they don't need to re-enter these locations. And it dedupes them, right? So if you have New York 10017, you're not going to see it there 7 times, right? We originally default to show for only the selected account, but they've asked, well, what if it's an account in a hierarchy? Well, we could actually show all the addresses for within the hierarchy. Again, I'm using demo data, so you're only seeing 2. In reality, Charlotte, how many probably would you see up there if you're a rep? Could be hundreds. Yeah, it could be a lot, right? So it could really get pretty hectic for them. So we wanted to make it as simple as possible. Okay, so I'm actually going to add 2 locations here. I already had one selected, so hit save. Okay. Still running. Customer. Okay, so now that I've added my locations, and we are actually changing this, to let you know in the next release, to actually go directly to the screen once I add the locations. There was reasons we didn't do that originally for business reasons, but we've actually changed that. What you're going to see here now is this is Adobe Flex. So they need to have a grid to do this easily. How do I say how much of that $5 I'm selling is New York and how much of it is London, and what rep gets this and what rep gets that? And they were doing this all in Excel, and we didn't want to make it so abundantly difficult to do this by making it, we could have done this with like 5 different custom objects, clicks. That's why we used custom code to do this. So what the rep now can do, or their sales associate can do, is they can now take this product and split it out across. So again, this one was only for $1, but say this was for 50,000, right? And I split up 25,000, 25,000, I can get it to do that automatically through code, so they don't need to actually do that. But what they need to do is they need to select the reps for each area. So they can select the rep on this location and the rep on this location. And they can put any specialists in that are working with them as well. Because their specialists also get forecast credit. So they need to set up all these different reps that are different regions. So again, I'm not going crazy on this demo, but see how the users are set up there too as well? If this was a user-based product and I was selling 50 users, right, and there was 30 users and 20 users, I could actually set those and the math would automatically be done for them. It would say 30 users and figure out the math, the total amount, and split that up evenly. So again, I'm not going too crazy on the demo here because we're not using real data, but I wanted to get you guys the idea of the complexity of what this could do. Make sense to everybody? Good. Okay, so cancel it. And by the way, if they don't split it up evenly, I get error messages at the top that says, you're not allocated correctly, so I can't put it sell a deal for 50,000 and then only allocate 10,000. It'll give them Reddit messages. It's a soft stop. It doesn't stop them from saving it, but when they submit it, it won't let them actually create the order until they solve that problem. Okay. So that's our locations and allocations, right? So at this point, typically what a rep would do is, once they sold the deal, they change this, close one it out. And at this point, it's no longer in the salesperson's hands. What did I do wrong? Yeah. It's no longer in the salesperson's hands. And what Moody's actually does is hand it over to a sales associate for the creation of that order. Okay? So how does the sales associate do that? Well, they have their closed one opportunity. And what they actually go through now is a process of creating a contract first. So now, is this actually your contract itself? No, it's more of a contract placeholder. So we don't actually create our contracts out of here yet. That may be something that they choose to do in the future. Right now, it's more of just a placeholder to get their contract number in. Because we do a lot of automated contract numbering, as you'll see the number automatically populates in there. And so that we can tie that into other systems. But it's not actually the physical contract that's created out of here. Do want to make that clear. Okay. You see most of the information defaults for them. It comes up with their contract term. Again, this was actually custom code to actually develop all this as well. They can put some of the terms in there. Again, this is just for visual purposes. So if the salesperson wants to see some of the terms, but this isn't the legal end of it, right? Obviously, the legal end would have a lot more information. Okay. And they can actually put a link. They have a thing called Worksite where the actual physical contract is stored. They actually can put the link there to where the contract is. So if the rep or the sales associate wants to see the contract, they can still get to that. Simple integration there, just a link integration. Okay. And now I'd hit save. Right? It isn't until this point until they can create an order. And I'm all going to go through a typical sales order. For those of you who maybe have professional services in your organization, we have a PSG order, and that's what that is. They're per professional services group. We create different orders for that because they're regular orders. Once they're in, they really can't touch them. If you have professional services in your organization, you'll know that an order is never truly an order until it's actually booked, right? So you actually bill it. So you may have to have milestone billing. You may have to have expenses. You can't submit that and know what that's going to be right away. So we allow them to actually edit that and put items on hold and actually pass them to their provisioning and invoicing systems as they happen. And that's the main difference between the orders. I'm going to go through the simple order, which is your typical like product-based order. Okay? So what do? They hit create sales order. And what did I do wrong? See, validations. I told you what some of the validations are. So the contract must be signed before I create an order, and I didn't mark this account as OFAC compliant. So let's do that real quick. Okay? So first thing, I'll just make the account OFAC compliant. And I'm actually kind of glad that happened so that you can actually see. Didn't I? Oh, I have a contract sign date. Is that what it is? Yeah. There we go. Save. Now I can create my order. Okay. So there's one set of the validations. You don't see these going on. Obviously, they're going around behind the scenes. But then they create an order, there's a set of validations. And obviously, when they submit an order, there's going to be a set of validations. Right? A lot of this stuff we pre-create. So you're going to see all the orders here already. Right? We get a lot of this from the opportunity. We also already added the lines. And you remember how I said multiple locations? The locations are added. Not sure why London's there 3 times right now, but like I said, we're in a testing environment. So bear with me. So there we have our order created. Right? At this point, there's a couple of things they can do. They can do what they call select a bill to and ship to. Right? So this is also custom code. They need to say who they're billing this to and who they're shipping it to. Right? So we built a little way for that to work as well. They have to come in, they select their bill to contact. Let's choose our friend Derek Jeter again. There we go. And you notice everything defaults for them. If there were departments, they can choose what department there was. Again, I didn't set up departments for this particular one. And we'll say the ship to is the same. So we'll just set that up. Hit save. Okay. Next. When Moody's actually sells user-based products, they actually have to add what users they're actually going to provision on this, right? And 99% of the time, their users are actually contacts in our system, right? So what we did is we built an easy way for them to actually select who those users are going to be. Now, this wasn't a user-based product I chose, but I still want to show you quickly the wizard that was built. So we hit add named users. And what actually going to happen here is going to aggregate all the contacts for that particular account within the hierarchy and say, and obviously we only have 2, and you can actually select and say, okay, I want to provision these 2 users. So here we go. Hit next. They can actually use the search, and they can actually search outside of that company too. So I can search for any contact in the database if I want, for some reason if I was provisioning somewhere else. Now they can say where they actually want to provision them. And if these were multiple products and multiple locations, right, we'd show multiple products. You could say provision Derek Jeter for this product, product A, but not for product B. See? And we gave them really checkboxes to do this, because otherwise if we made them add it all one at a time, it could get pretty hairy. Okay? So let's just provision both of them. Hit save. And that's it. Now, I'm showing you guys a real simple order. Think of you're a sales associate and you have to provision 50 users. Well, it's a lot easier to do it than click them all off and add them one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. For some of the global deals, it could probably even get hairier. It's 500 users, right? So try to make it, again, as simple as possible. If it's a 500 user deal, yeah, even checking 500 is not going to be fun, right? Or selecting them, but there's, you gotta make it as simple as possible for your users, and that's the one thing, take anything out of this. Okay. And at that point, what they can actually do is hit submit order. I'm actually not going to submit at this point, but I just wanted to, because we actually have live integrations testing, and I don't want to, while they're testing, have to test this particular order as well. But when I hit submit, it'll do validations as well. If it's a user-based product, it'll ensure that you have users you're provisioning users to every one of these products, right? We also have validations for each of their provisioning systems. Requires certain fields be filled in before it gets passed down. It checks all those individual fields as well, depending on what type of order this is. Make sense so far? Yeah.
Did you do the validation?
Man, I gotta go for that.
Sure. Yeah, it was you can hear me? Yeah, it was all done in Apex. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that, obviously it's not the flashiest thing, but if you work with the platform a lot, the biggest thing that you run into is governor limits, right? So every screen, it's all pageable, so that's why you can see there's always a UI element to go to the next page. And so we did that from the ground up. But yeah, all the actual validations were in Apex. Yes. Another question, yeah?
Were the validation rules brought over from the provisioning system, or did you actually call the provisioning system?
They were brought in during the requirements phase, and then we just basically replicated in Salesforce. The system that we were essentially sort of replicating the validation rules for didn't have the ability to the web services and API to be able to access those. But yeah, absolutely, that was a consideration. Any more questions?
So what next? Not quite done with the demo yet, but we wanted to make sure we showed you guys as much as we possibly could. So last thing I'm going to go to, and again, can we shut this one down? Yeah. What we're going to do is go to our sales target page. And you're going to notice this is one version of it. We actually have two. The one I'm showing right now is using Visual Force. And what it's doing is, you'll see the data is going to come back slowly. We're pulling data now from multiple objects. We're pulling data from opportunities for their forecast. The book sales that you're seeing there is from their orders. Okay? The SRB, which I didn't talk about, it's what they call their starting renewal base, is from a custom object called SRB, which lists all their data that they have to renew for next year. Right? The target is something custom we built on their user profile. We actually have a custom target allocation. It actually allocates targets. They can put in percentages, and it creates their target for them. The management can do that. So there's a lot of custom stuff that I didn't show you all. It can take up to I will say it could take up to 30 seconds to pull up because we're pulling for so many multiple objects. The reason we chose to do this at this point was the reps now couldn't get this information anywhere. They had to do all of this in Excel, and maybe they got it once every 2 weeks. So they didn't know what they did. So we went from something they get once every 2 weeks, where if it took, takes 30 seconds to 40 seconds to come up, they can get it all real time, right? And we bring it up in modes, in areas like this, right, so that they can actually see the data as it comes, so that they don't get frustrated with any of the performance. But it can take up to 30 seconds. As quick as 5, though, too, we've seen, too. So it all depends. And, again, testing environment. So what do we have here on the screen, right? Well, the rep can actually see what their SRB is. So that's what they were supposed to actually renew for that month and that year, right? They can see what their growth target for the year was. So this person's 67,000. The book sales will come up. When it does, it'll say this is what you've booked. The actual forecast is what's in what opportunities you have in there for that month. And what that'll actually be, you'll notice it's 0 most of these months. Well, it should be 0 in months that have already passed, right? So in November, there's some there. There we go, it came up. There's their book sales. What their actual plus forecast is, which is book sales plus forecast. Did they hit their target? We do these calculations on the fly, percentage of target. And then if I actually scroll down, some of these other things are just one time. So they have a whole idea of renewable products versus one time. So they have separate targets for both of them. So we just repeat all of that. And so the rep can see it on a monthly basis. They can scroll down and see their totals, how they're doing towards target, and their year-to-date totals are all automatically calculated on the fly. And the nice thing about this as well is you see those little underlines where you always ask what they are? Like, well, can you really see the underlying data? Yes. We drill down to Salesforce standard reports. That's where it goes to. And we actually run the report, and they can actually see what makes up that number. So if they drill down on forecast, they'll see the actual opportunities that are open there. If they drill down on book sales, they'll see the actual orders that were created, and SRB, so on and so forth. So actually, this is probably, if you ask their head of sales, was the most important thing to him in the entire implementation, their head of global sales. So out of all the customizations I think you've seen today, for a salesperson, this was the most powerful one. It allows them to see on a daily basis, how am I doing this year? And management can actually go, they are very open. They actually allow, I apologize. They actually allow people to look at anybody else's forecasts. So you can see where anybody else is driving to. Now, if you didn't want that, you could set that up, or you didn't want that as well. Obviously, that was a choice that they made. Okay. So that's from the demo point. Before I move on from the demo, does anybody have any questions or comments? Or?
So you totally customize the forecast versus using the forecast object?
Yes, we did not use the forecast object here. It's off opportunities, definitely, but that forecast number is not using the forecast object. The forecast object is not as readily available through the API, so to pull it into something like this, we couldn't. Also, the terms that they use, commit, pipeline, open, things like that, didn't really work for Moody's, so we didn't want to, in some cases you can stick a, let's do this up, round peg, square hole, that whole, but in this particular, we didn't want to do that. We really wanted to give them what they were driving towards, so we did not use it. Yep.
The Flux tool you use for the grid.
Yep.
Is that something that's a licensed tool?
Ben, can you take that one?
No, it's just basically for this particular installation. It's not something that's readily available that we can deploy somewhere else.
Oh, that's being mad. I'm sorry. Yep. Okay.
One quick follow-up on that. If you hadn't done the Flex tool, what would have been the alternative?
Yeah, most likely it probably would have been in Ajax. When we started this, it was just a question of sort of maturity of tools, and at the time, it was something that was being also looked at. That was another consideration as well. Flex is also making a lot of inroads at the organization, so it was something that we knew that they could support that from an organizational level.
And that's a good point he's making. It also depends on your particular organization, too. Where do you have the resources to kind of manage some of these things? What tools are you using in other areas? So I think there's a couple of different courses of action you can take on these things. It's really looking at it per your organization as well.
Yeah, actually, Brian, if I could just make a few points about this screen.
Yeah.
Really, if you're sitting here, you're like, well, this is sort of taking a few seconds to load. We certainly looked at, we weighed all the options, and even maybe bringing this data outside of Salesforce, possibly doing reporting there, using, Salesforce-based reporting. And really, this is basically, strictly for, what we had to work with, the requirements, again, what they were currently using, the solution came up with. This is actually a sort of stitch between Ajax and Visualforce, so we are sort of calling the three data sources. The one that's the slowest, the one that popped in last, is the sales order data, which right now is trending to tens of thousands of records. Now, you're saying, well, you can't churn through 10,000 records. Well, so we had two approaches. One was sort of this self-reloading Visualforce page, which is sort of, a creative way to get around government limits. But this is the Ajax, so we didn't have the same issue. So it is a little more dependent on network conditions.
So yeah, again, something like this, if we had a source, if we had a reporting engine we may have been able to use, we could have linked to that instead of doing something. For each place, you may have different options you can take. This was the best for them at this period.
So is that reaching into the legacy system somewhere?
Nope. This is all data sourced in Salesforce. We could potentially do something like that, but at this point, no. This is all the Salesforce data coming in. Now, the legacy systems do talk back to Salesforce, so that book sales number, if a change request happens, and that went into the legacy system, that would get passed directly into Salesforce and be reflected in here. So that's where that Informatica integration you talked about earlier. It is bidirectional. So when we go to the provisioning systems, we submit the order there. If any changes come back or cancellations into that system, they get pushed back to Salesforce. And that all happens in a 30-minute period. So 30 minutes up and down. Okay. So that's all from a demo point of view. I know we have 10 minutes left, so let's just quickly wrap up and then leave some time for extra questions. Sorry. Okay. So what did we achieve out of all of this, right? Okay. So, well, at the end, they now have a consolidated view of all their accounts and contacts. It's not 7 different systems where their accounts and contacts are, right? There's a single pipeline and management tool. So the Excel spreadsheets are gone. The different source systems are gone. The different places they were managing opportunities are gone. They can see it all in one place. So they have that forecast, making that sales target page possible. Part of the reason they had to do it in Excel in the past is because you had it from 5 different places, right? A single order entry tool. If you're a sales associate, this is the only thing you need to learn now. You don't need to, learn to enter it into 17 different ways, right? Consolidated sales report. So, like I said, just like everything else, they can actually see what their total sales are for the year. It's not coming from multiple systems. Visibility into the sales rep performance against the target, what we just saw. And then the quoting and pricing tool with Salesforce. They have complex pricing rules. They were doing it, again, all in Excel. They now built that in here, integrated with Salesforce, give them one-stop shop to do all of these things. And then they got a high rate of user adoption. Now, I'll be bluntly honest with you, there isn't anything else that they have to use it, right? So, but the reps are also happy with it, right? So that is something you have to keep in mind. High rate of adoption can happen multiple ways, right? It can happen because you have no other choice. It could happen because they want to use it. It's good to find that happy medium. What is that thing, the one thing that drives your salespeople crazy, right? If it's because it takes forever to, I don't know, get a credit check, well, make that quicker by using this. Find that one thing, because besides making them use it, if you make them use it, you're only going to get the amount of data they have to put in. If you find a reason to want them to use it, then you'll get more.
I just have a question for you. Do you consider a simplification of your rules rather than building this complexity?
We did explore that as an option, but there's a lot of interrelated processes, so we'd probably, a lot of the drivers were around the commission plans, so we probably had to revamp all of that in order to change a lot of the processes. So, yeah.
That's a nice way of saying no.
Yeah.
Yep.
In terms of the high rate of user adoption, when you got the firepower working with the flex work on the salespeople, did you find that you had any trouble with the fields still wanting to use their sales spreadsheets?
Sure. I mean, there's definitely.
I was supposed to repeat the questions for the video, and I didn't. The question was, do we have still any problems with the users still wanting to use their Excel spreadsheets?
Sure. I mean, obviously, the offline spreadsheets have their advantage. The reps are able to take the spreadsheets on the road with them if they need to take them on the plane. We're exploring other options with FPX right now to have an offline version available as well as an on-demand direct version into FPX, which allow them to go directly into the application without having to create a, I guess, fake opportunity.
Any others? Okay. Oh, there we go. At this point in time, no. The plan is actually to, at some point, maybe use mobile as a way to the best users can get maybe a mobile pilot. Because of the high-level complexity, we did think about it. But we did, again, something to keep in mind when you're doing your implementations, you don't want to take on too much, especially integrating all those systems. Mobile would have just added a level of complexity for phase one. I don't have it here as specific future plans, but it is definitely one of the future plans that we have. So there's a large list of items we're still going to try to do here. Some of the big ones is they already made some new acquisitions, so we're migrating those onto this platform. And like Min said earlier, it's all about we made the data model compact well enough that bringing new users on isn't a whole new implementation. It's just a set getting them on. We want to integrate the customer service and marketing functions a little bit more into here, and we're working on that right now. So getting a little bit more call center-centric for the customer service teams. We want a 360-degree view of the client. If we don't have that, more like 270, 180. And we want to directly integrate to the finance and provisioning systems through Salesforce. So right now, I said changes and cancellations come back. Well, why aren't changes and cancellations just done here? There was a lot of changes being made. We didn't want to integrate. We didn't want to change all of that and then have to change it again in a year. So our ultimate plan is to do changes and cancellations in Salesforce as well, and just completely get rid of the rest, right? And then finally, concentration on data quality, training, and adoption, the things that you should always be concentrating through all of these things. So how do you position yourself for this? Well, multiple ways. I mean, one of the first things you really need to do is you need to come up with, remember I said that best-of-breed selection? Let's take a look at what your organization currently is. What's your position right now? And come up with what is that roadmap you're going to have. Don't bite off more than you can chew, right? You just saw a whole lot here we did in phase one, right? If I had added cases on here, customer service, all that, we need to do this all in 6 months, right? You take that all on, your level of fail is a lot harder. So you need to start looking at what do you actually have today? What are the technologies you have in your organization that are available to you? And then what are the things we need to add to? And come up with that selection process and what your roadmap is going to be. Okay, that's the most important thing. If you go into, oh, you saw this demo, oh, we want that sales targets thing. That's great. Well, we had to do a lot of things to get to that sales target page, right? Determining what those things are is the most important thing is that roadmap. Any questions from anybody? And, yep.
How did you aggregate all the customer account data? Is that in Salesforce?
Okay, so the question was how do we aggregate the customer data from the different source systems, I'm guessing. So what was chosen to do, there actually was a team in charge of consolidating all that data. They did use tools that they had in-house to actually do that deduplication of searching matching criteria. There was no unique identifier across these systems. They had a lot of data, and actually it is still ongoing. There is still cleanup going on. They chose to do their, what was it, your top 100?
Yeah, top. We organized our accounts globally, so we have our GAM accounts, which are our global accounts. We rank them by priority of customers, and we started top down in terms of priority of business.
And the cleanup is still going on, actually. So.
Are you actually storing that in Salesforce.com, the location?
Yes.
As separate customer records or account records?
No, you're referring to the locations that you saw in the opportunities. So those are actually all pulled from the contact records and account records that are native to Salesforce. We just aggregate that on the UI.
Yep.
Phase 1 from project kickoff to first rep train.
Yep.
How long was it?
It was about a year.
So about that year, can you do it quicker? Definitely. It's level of customizations, amount of testing you want to do. We went through rigorous testing cycles. How many do we have? 4, I think?
I think we had 4 test cycles. We also have our reps globally, so it probably took about a month and a half to hit all the different sites at Moody's to train everyone up as well towards the end.
When did you go live?
June, I think, 09.
June 8th?
June 8th, sorry.
I remember that. So yeah, we went live June 8th, so we've been now live, what is that, 4 or 5 months. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, everybody. Oh, we have one.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
Back to the future plans to integrate customer service and marketing functions bullet point.
Yep.
So you mentioned that briefly, like customer service center data, and I don't know if there's a web kind of component that would come in as well.
Yes,
I
it's
think there are a lot of different pieces.
a lot of different pieces. So it's going to be, yes.
Yeah,
from
we
the
have a
web.
lot of existing functionality that we have. So we're on Siebel and PeopleSoft on some of our support desks, and another one that's homegrown. Siebel does have Support Web, which is an online-based tool that and we want to bring all that functionality over to Salesforce.
Okay. So the data that would be coming from those different sources, because we're looking at doing a similar thing too, trying to tie together different customer contact points. And would this involve building out like a data warehouse internally, or would these different systems just kind of pipe their data to Salesforce, and then would that all be aggregated there? Which of those paths are you guys considering?
So it's actually I'll give you 2 answers. Basically, the customer support, our plan is to aggregate that all within Salesforce.com as a phase 2 of the project. So we want to decommission Siebel, PeopleSoft, and the homegrown systems. However, there are still a lot of legacy provisioning systems, and we have our HR, and we also have our finance system they have longer term plans in different organizationals. So we're actually not going to consolidate all the information. So there's going to be different systems of record, and I think we are going down the path of data warehousing for a lot of the other areas outside of sales and customer service.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending. If you have any questions specifically, we'll remain here for a couple minutes. And also, we have a booth out on the expo hall, too, if you want to get information about Fujitsu. FBX also has a booth. And I can get you information about Moody's if you'd like that as well.